Now, have you noticed one of the most Orwellian elements of our current modern reality and collective language? Have you noticed? I'll give you a couple moments to just think about this. Have you noticed how ironic it is for a society or elements of it that see themselves as the most awake to the quote-unquote matrix, right? Popular videos trending for years, the dumbing down of America, a group of Americans conditioning themselves and others to point their friggin' finger at others that they say are asleep while developing hardcore addictions to computers, to cell phones, to social media, all the while pointing their friggin' finger at the rest of America, talking about the dumbing down of America while demonizing those seeking higher education as sheeple. The question that we ask ourselves in order to be successful at evolving beyond the matrix and not just being another resentful cog in the machine acting like we're woke while pointing our friggin' finger, how do we take accountability for avoiding the dumbing down of America? What steps, whether it be journaling, exercise, reading, going hiking, taking time away from social media, deleting your Facebook page. This is more than data collection. This is about a hardcore addiction. Notice those in this dumbing down of America and their political persuasions that are coming to the defense of Facebook, acting like all criticisms of Facebook are politically motivated or in relation to Cambridge Analytics. What about the video I made 6 years ago? Does it have no value when I was living in Costilla County and I talked about the nature of social media replacing our real human relationships? Where was the Clinton propaganda in that video? Tell me. You see, it is the dumbing down of America that is unable to see the patterns, to go, hey, that was a unique, non-Democrat, non-Republican perspective from 5 years ago, from 10 years ago. Hey, maybe there are some points being made about social media addiction that have nothing to do with politics and everything to do with social media replacing our real human relationships. And so we are seeing the reality of how expansive the dumbing down of America is, how little people have learned or have sought to learn or to cure their own dumbing down while they're pointing their friggin' finger. You know, I was thinking earlier about all that judgment towards the mentally ill that are homeless in Portland by those, I would say, mentally ill, fellow mentally ill citizens of Portland, Oregon, that just simply haven't lost it all yet. They haven't lost their home yet. They haven't lost their job yet. They haven't lost their relationship yet or their spouse yet. So they haven't lost material things yet. But the question is, have they lost their heart? Have they lost their compassion? Have they lost elements of their common sense? When they fall into the illusions of separation, us versus them. It's not much different than the police officer that may be corrupt, that looks down upon the non-police officer population. Us versus them. But the greater reality is, if there's a pollution that is causing mental illness in Portland, Oregon, or a spiritual sickness, right? And I'm just using that as an example. You can, I used to get many audience members come and go, and very rarely do they stay more than a year or two. I think there was somebody by the name of Jen that used to write from Stockholm, Sweden. Very, very often. And when I would talk about Portland, Oregon, for example, this listener, this audience member would send an email that was at least a page long, like responding to elements that were mentioned in the video to just express, like, there is a mirror image, Alex, of whatever you're explaining in Portland, Oregon, USA, that is a mirror image of Stockholm, Sweden, Europe. And it's like we can forget that. We can forget when we're looking at the madness of our own locale, how that's just simply the micro of the macro. You can have a place like Portland, Oregon, where everybody's breathing the same air. And everybody's living around like a polluted Willamette River that's full of sewage. In a society that doesn't really contemplate, right? A society that's so dumbed down that it doesn't fully contemplate the effect of the health of water or water molecules down to the subatomic level, and how a great body of water that has been polluted, mismanaged by the very first forms of human government, i.e. the foundation of Oregon. And we're just using this as a micro. Like you can have the same story about wherever you're from or wherever you're familiar with. And so there's actually a history of debauchery, alcoholism, sex addiction, other forms of mental illness, hearing voices, things of that nature. And you'll actually see more people running down the street screaming in a place like Portland, Oregon, than other cities. You'd have to go somewhere like San Francisco or somewhere in California to find something comparable to what's happening to the people in Portland. You see, but it's the illusions of separation. It's the dumbing down of America that says, oh, no, that's those people. Just like the people on the left and the people that are on the right, and in particular the extreme illusions of separation types that are on extreme ends of the paradigm, that'll point their friggin' finger at the other group being a threat to America without taking accountability for their own threats to public safety, to public sanity, and a general sense of happiness. And so avoiding the dumbing down of America, now that I've given you some ideas of how the illusions of separation play a big role in that, when we reel in our addictions and we take accountability and responsibility for being healthy human beings, then we're able to start taking steps forward towards the contrast or the opposite of the dumbing down process. What is the opposite of the dumbing down process? It's an expansion of consciousness. How does that come? It comes from accessing information within ourselves. It doesn't come from just reading book after book after book from one man or another. What is your truth and how are you going to get there? We can come across other people's information, but that's not meant to be a gospel. If someone's looking for a gospel or someone who wrote the book that explains it all, they're not yet woke yet, but they may be on the path to being woke. Every one of us, if you have a soul, that is. There may be some of us, some on the planet, without a soul and without access to information. You know, we do live in the world of potential cyborgs amongst us, but that aside, I'm going to assume all of you have this ability. So all of you have the ability to access truth and that expanded consciousness that is not just some marketing term or is not just some way that you're choosing to describe yourself in your sexy dress that you're going to wear tonight out on the town, or yoga pants, or for the men, whatever may suit their material expression of consciousness. And I believe that a lot of people will still, they're conditioned to believe that information is not held within us. You know, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of tools that we have in life. Kind of like I have Photoshop, and until my friend visits and gives me a tutoring on it, you know, I don't want to go through all the hoops of having to learn how to use the tool through a YouTube tutorial. I'm going to learn in person and then start improving the thumbnails, you know, to something more modern. And doing thumbnails with cheap programs doesn't work as well as it does with Photoshop. So I'm just going to work to learn to use Photoshop. So the ability, right, to make great thumbnails is on my computer. But the knowledge of how to use the tool doesn't necessarily exist. The same thing goes for human biology. Your body is a tool. Your mind is a tool. Your spirit is a tool. Your mind, body, and spirit, especially when they're working together, it is a tool. But if we don't know how to use our tools, or worse yet, if we're misled into particular directions to misuse our tools, harming others, for example, using your mind to harm or troll or bring drama to someone's life instead of use your mind to think tank your way to a solution. What can you do to help someone? Okay. Not are you assigned to someone today to watch what they do like you're a freelance police officer or investigative reporter. No, what can you do to say something that can lead someone towards higher consciousness? And thinking about these things on a day-to-day level is a way we can maintain accountability and avoid the dumbing down process. We have it's like a hall of mirrors. Or it's like, you look at a monitor that's showing a monitor, filming a monitor, going into infinitum, right? You ever done that before? Oh my God, I'm filming my monitor live on a YouTube stream. And it's just like a hall of, and what we have a lot of humans that are on autopilot that are following other humans. And we have humans following humans and other humans following those humans. Right? And we can see even examples of this at the micro level within the alternative media. So we can see like a few trendsetters and like a few people following those keywords and those trends because they are not creating themselves or sharing their own ideas or being their own trend setter with their keywords. It's seeing what trends and then mirroring it. And it's one thing, right, to be a part of something that's trending, but it's also important to understand the way of the archons is to copy others or to invert others. So people that lie, people that steal, people that deceive, that is the way of the archon. The purpose of this conversation is the archon also copies the talking points of others. And the peer pressure, which is also a product of the archons, right? You either conform or find yourself exiled or cast out. And so, if someone doesn't even know that society is engineered this way, by not even being aware of these things, they could be incrementally affected by society's norms. When it comes to creating YouTube content and the alternative media, if someone doesn't even know that there is a deception within the alternative media and some of the top sites, if there's a reason that their talking points are echoing from InfoWars to Rinse.com to other figures, and how it's shifted from what they used to talk about. And if someone's going to call themselves woke and repeat talking points from others that aren't even their own, then that would be the expression of the dumbing down of America, even if they're using language like being red-pilled, even if they're talking about the Matrix. This is actually even more evidence of the dumbing down. And like the archon, like the spiritual parasite, they're taking memes, right, and using them for propaganda. So you think about Morpheus and the idea of the red pill. The idea is to wake up from the illusion. But if you take the red pill to promote some sort of movement or some sort of psychosis, saying that's waking up when it's actually going back to sleep. It's actually the illusions of separation. It's actually the dumbing down of America. And so these things are pretty critical for people to understand that there is truth in a book like 1984. But you'll see both the left and the right engaged in their own Orwellianism, while they hold a book of 1984 in their hand, pointing their finger at the other group for being 1984-ish, Orwellian-ish. When you can find Orwellian behaviors on the left and the right. Attempts to rewrite history. Attempts to say 2 plus 2 equals 5. Well, we know that 2 plus 2 equals 4. But see, we're hearing these absurd truths in the dumbing down of America from our very peers. that 2 plus 2 equals 5. You know, examples, you know, our elections are rigged. People will say this for a long time, and it's a Big Brother surveillance society. We're heading towards a global conflict. This is a one world order government. Oh, now we just elected somebody that believes just like us, a billionaire who's outside the establishment. 2 plus 2 equals 8.3. No, 2 plus 2 does not equal 8.3. It does not equal 5. It does not equal 6. It does not equal 12. There's no way in the computation of 2 plus 2 that you can equal anything but 4 within the rules and parameters of basic mathematics. And so it would require a dumbing down of America to now say that 2 plus 2 equals 5. And for both the left and the right to use literature like George Orwell's 1984 for their own Orwellianism without addressing the left-right paradigm. Let's continue. Avoiding the dumbing down of America would be someone, if they're looking at the idea of being watched, you know, think about that song from the 1980s, I got a feeling somebody's watching me, you know, in that Michael Jackson voice. And I got no privacy. Whoa. Now, does it seem logical that everyone in one's neighborhood is a government agent that's on the government payroll? Or does it seem more logical that they may be in a matrix, that something may be assaulting them spiritually because of either their gifts, their online activity, I would even say their aura, because we have an energy field, and it's possible that we can be tracked without being shipped by our energy frequency being tracked that may be read as a energy heat signature from even space. Or perhaps technologies we're not aware of that serve the unseen forces. You know, think something like Out of They Live or something to that effect. And it's amazing how many people cite They Live and they keep it on the scene with the sunglasses and they just like avoid everything else that's in the movie. Or just like 1984, people talk about 1984 and they just kind of avoid how two lovers, a man and a woman, were making love, having sex multiple times. And this was forbidden by the state. And so I would talk about 1984 really being about the divide between the masculine and the feminine. And everything else, the cameras, the get up and jumping jack, the 2 plus 2 equals 4 equals 5, that was all just details around the primary story of the state intervening and destroying the family. Again, more dumbing down of society, where the very people that are citing 1984, the very people that are saying they're woke, can't even articulate how romance was the enemy in 1984. It was romance. The surveillance cameras, the party members here and there, everything was just around the core of the state or the system destroying romance between a man and a woman. That is the core of 1984, next to Wars Without End, Eurasia versus East Asia. And again, that is mirroring our world now. We've always been at war. Things have always been like this. So the very people that think they're woke may be asleep. In some cases, right, some of the people that we may accuse of being asleep may be awoke on a level. You see, it's ridiculous to say that everything that we fear and everything that we desire, we will manifest with our thoughts. That completely throws out natural law. But can we influence things to a certain degree? Even within a dichotomy or paradigm of destiny? And I believe the answer is yes. There's actually balance to the idea of natural law, as well as mindfully using the law of attraction, not using it to bully people that are homeless, not using it to bully people that aren't millionaires, but actually understanding the reality of it. And Americans are really in a early stage of understanding things like the law of attraction, and is not yet incorporating that into a woke state, today's spiritualists, with actually addressing the world situation. Why do people die? Why are countries invaded? Why are souls born into bodies that may exist in certain countries that either may be invaded or others that are doing the invading? What would be the purpose of being a soul placed in a human body that faces unique challenges? The unique challenges that a soul faces inside the body, inside a country that's doing the invading, right? That challenge would be to stand up, not be on your knees with your mouth open, excuse the colorful illustration, but to be standing with your mouth open, speaking the things that need to be said to convince those of your peers and those in your nation to stop the bloodshed, to stop the needless offensive action to people that did nothing to you. This is timeless. This is actually a very timeless sword in the stone analogy for the soul to be born in the nation that's actually doing the invading, that's actually doing the offensive action, that's actually creating the manufactured events, scapegoating an entire group of people for multiple decades and perhaps hundreds of years, marking them for extermination. Now, does that sound just a little bit like the current world order? And they can even displace people with immigration and use propaganda to make it seem like now the rest of the world's being invaded by the same people that are being accused of the taking down of the towers on 9/11 in 2001. This is the dumbing down of America now. You can have people in 2018 with blackened hearts that at one point in their earlier adulthood questioned the official story and other official stories, only by 2018 to believe the main talking points of Infowars.com, Rents.com, AMTV, and others that are in the controlled network. Okay. It would require the dumbing down of America to not identify the controlled opposition. By this point, it would require a blackened heart in a human being to not understand that it is wrong to hurt innocent people and to put them in this giant box when you know what the military-industrial complex is capable of and what's been done to those people since 2001. So let's bring this back to a video that I was watching yesterday. I'm using multiple examples. The Vice documentary film has done a number of documentaries. One was on targeted individuals. The other was on gang stalking. So you live on a planet where for thousands of years, mankind, womankind, has hypothesized their inner gnosis. Okay, so whether they're called archons by one element of an older society within Western Europe, again the Gnostics, or whether we're looking at another group on the planet that may have come up with another name for parasites of a spiritual nature, not of a physical nature, that have some sort of ability to interface with humanity and lead it astray when those human beings are not aligned with the light or the truth. That the psychic interface that we do possess, that sixth sense, can be hijacked. Now, this means that people that are able to receive messages or channeling or impressions from others are most of the time, in my opinion, hijacked by lower beings. The best place to get one's information is from within one's own soul. To go within the cell of your own body for that knowledge, your own ancestry. It is within you. When we start looking at the channeled messages from others, we are being led astray. The only way, right, that can be a good thing is if it's helping you remember what you already knew or know. You know, as you continue reading that PDF, that the information that you're reading is actually like page by page, like helping you remember that same information. If it's all new information, you might just be giddy off of the creativity and the newness from that information. It may not necessarily be legitimate information. So to be really woke in the situation, to be awakened, is to be able to come across information and recognize if it really holds a resonance of truth. And to use great discretion when putting much credence in information or books written by people that claim to have received their information from a deity. Because there are deities out there that will give information that may be accurate to humans to a certain point, only to trick those human beings to then feeding them additional information that may in the end be toxic. And it could be something as simple as at the end of the yellow brick road, by the 60th page or the 100th page, maybe dropping some names of some deities, suggesting that you call out to XYZ, and it could actually be a trap. In the same way that we deal with entrapment or the FBI trying to set up particular groups within the United States or something similar in other countries, undercover operations, the same type of thing happens here. But going back to these documentaries, despite the thousands of years of mankind questioning what type of influence has been interfacing, some call it the demiurge, the head archon, some call it Satan. So it's amazing how many people are able to discount that as a possibility. And even though mankind lives in a world where we can engage in our own experiments on rats, for example, and those rats in that scientific lab may not know the nature of human beings, what makes us tick, what we have for breakfast, why we're doing studies on them, more than likely they don't know that a study is being done on them to begin with. They're being put into some sort of a maze to where they see, they hear, they sense, they pick up on those environmental cues that the human scientists have created for them. Now, supposedly we're at such a low level where people go, well, what would aliens want to do with us, without even realizing that we're an energy source? When we're put into extreme fear and fatigue and anger, that our energies are being harvested. And this is the purpose of events being manufactured. This is the purpose of events being manufactured when there are geomagnetic storms, which can also be caused by coronal holes in the sun, not just solar flares, not just cosmic rays, but magnetic changes on the sun itself can cause subtle G1 magnetic storming, like we saw right in the days in and around the beginning of this recent spat with that country in the Middle East that people believe is an area with conflicts between U.S. and Russia that can lead to something larger. Of course, it would require the dumbing down of a society to not question whether the leadership of XYZ country is not conspiring with the leadership of ABC country in order to fulfill an agenda that the humans on the ground don't know anything about. The humans that are in their own soul experiment, those that are going to get it and align with the light and the truth, and those that still, even now in 2018, won't get it and will continue to serve the illusions of separation and the destroyer spirit. Because even with your trolling, even with your thoughts, even with your actions, you can be a servant of the destroyer spirit without earning a paycheck. It's all in your thoughts. It's right. Our thoughts have power. But the top authors on the law of attraction haven't even scratched the surface into how much thoughts impact our reality and where our soul goes beyond this plane. They're just looking at, just think about the circus and you'll end up at the third circus. Don't think about somebody actually punching you in the face and you won't actually get punched in the face. And that's a very elementary, kindergarten, preschool level of understanding energy. There may be other reasons why your punch in the face or a woman is victimized. Notice also, and I know this from my mother, those women in our lives that may accuse the male of not applying his law of attraction and thus drawing experiences to him. So, when a group of black kids beat me or threw a tennis ball racket case of some type at my face, and it hit me, and I've never been hit with like an inanimate object that was hard ever before in my life. And my mother said that it was my karma. And she would always enjoy doing this every time that I was attacked or sucker punched by other males in school. They would come up and try to play the knockout game on me. So I've been struck hard in my head between, I'd say, up to 10 times. So there was a spat there, and this may be a lot for some of you to handle, where all of a sudden by a certain age, like clockwork, I'm like 9 years old, 10 years old, and people come up and try to do the knockout. And it increased by 13 or 14. So around the same age that women start being sexually assaulted, when I was their age as a male, males would come up and attempt to knock me out, and my mother would say my karma created it. I was never a victim. And that's kind of a little bit bizarre. I'm going to be processing more of this and how this behavior for my mother extended into other areas. And I see this as the dumbing down of society, of the understanding of the law of attraction. Do we live in a world where women will also go, well, that woman was gang raped, and in some cases multiple times in her life, she must have been attracting this. She's not a victim, she must have been attracting this. No, they don't do that. Anyone just claiming to be a victim, in some cases, can find housing easier than a male. And so the reason I bring that up is you have a dumbing down of society that doesn't even understand when it's discriminating gender-wise. Oh, you had this happen to you. You're a female. Here, let's nurture you, and let's try to prevent this from happening again. Let's not beat you up or blame you, right, for being attacked. And I'm going to write more and more about this. I remember a Russian guy attacked me when I was 10, and he threw a library book at me. And I'm having flashbacks. That was the second time that I was struck with an inanimate object that left the actual mark. And somebody called the police, and I was interviewed by the police about what happened. And I told them what happened. They published it in a little paper. And for some reason, the female old librarian called me a liar. And somehow I think they felt that by me talking to the police and it being in the paper that it made the school look bad. And I was too young to even know, right, what it's like to be persecuted for speaking your truth or what happened to you. And I think I was only like 9 or 10. And that guy, I think his father held his family hostage with a gun like 6 months earlier. So it was like known that he was a child that was exposed to domestic violence and a standoff with the police that I think killed his father in front of him. And so here he is attacking me 6 months later, and I'm on a tangent. And I'm going to conclude this tangent and go back to the other points. Somebody in this physical world, if they're on this planet to do particular things or wake people up to a certain level or provide information, and I think that is what I'm here to do, and I think that you're listening to this channel because of what it is that I do. And I believe that those negative spiritual parasites that hang around human beings can see someone's future to a certain degree, that they're going to be someone or something. And that could make them angry. You see, but to the dumbing down humans and the New Agers, and people like my mother that even could never see anything in my current work because of all that programming from the 80s and all the fake channel messages from somehow that caused brain damage to a certain degree. To where for a number of years, she didn't even understand the sound of her son's voice or couldn't even understand me when I spoke over the phone. And I would speak in the same voice and tone that I'm speaking with you, and you seem to understand me. So I mean, I saw a lot of signs that there was some sort of altered brainwave state after her heavy embedment. I hold my uncle a little bit accountable too, though, for some of that. There's ways he could have been a better brother and better example. So going back down to that whole thing and then experiencing people in Portland, Oregon with their perversions of law of attraction thinking, oh no, Alex, don't warn us about China because you with your own mind might make it happen. And again, that's using like perceptions of how the law of attraction works to attack someone. And so the greater spiritual truth And this brings us back to that conversation about gaslighting and gang stalking. Is people could be attacked because they're on a mission, they're going to do something in their future, or maybe they've already done something right that's attracted the energy blowback of those spiritual parasites. And we are still at an infantile level of even understanding these spiritual parasites. You know, I consider myself to be a pioneer on a number of different topics, and I will talk about the archangels that I believe have been leading people astray in the New Age movement. Women having relationships in their own mind with particular deities that are coming down from the sky, and having these types of dialogues with them back and forth instead of accessing that truth within their own selves. And so there's ways in which people are duped into maintaining cords with spiritual parasites that present themselves as beautiful spiritual beings that are here to help us in our ascension. And it's the dumbing down, right, of modern society that doesn't understand that we can be affected energetically, made to have an orgasm, made to feel really good, made to etc., but also we can be affected to where when we're around good things and good people, right, people could be made to feel sick. Somebody could be receiving information from YouTube or a YouTuber, and all of a sudden they'll be thinking, well, that YouTuber's psychically attacking me, or I'm getting ringing in the ears, and the dumbing down factor won't even permit them to access their higher information to go, well, maybe I can download this video and I won't hear the ringing in the ears if I listen to it when I'm not on the internet. Because the dumbing down process is jamming healthy cognitive function. So it's a combination of multiple things, signals. It's the idea of you don't have to affect every fish in the sea. You just have to affect the sea itself. And then to create disinformation on the internet where people are looking for truth about the matrix, and to invert things. So, something might have a certain phrase or catchphrase, right? People may be claiming to be woke, by shortening the word from awakened to woke. And that should just be a sign in and of itself that people are dumbing down their own language. That they're taking letters out of words. They're losing the ability to write complete sentences. They're losing interest in writing on public forums or outside the human comment section, the YouTube comment section. Like, everything is becoming automated. It's like I have 15,000 subscribers, but only 1,000 or 1%. So like if I have 1,500 subscribers, if I have 15, let's do our math now. If I have 15,000 subscribers, and if 150 watch my last video, that is 1%. Again, that is 1% of those that voluntarily chose to subscribe to my channel are being notified and or are watching my video. If you look at those that are contributing out of the 15,000, let's look at the 15 people supporting my work at Patreon. And please join today if you appreciate this podcast and you want to show me that you want to hear more podcasts like this, that you want to see me put the energy into more podcasts like this. Please support at Patreon. Okay. I appreciate those that signed up recently. I need a lot more support. So when you look at 15 patrons out of 15,000 subscribers, again, let's do the math. 15 patrons out of 15,000 subscribers. Is that 10%? Is that 1%? Or is that 0.01%? Again, multiple choice. Is that 0.01%? Is that 1%? Or is that 10%? So I'm giving you A, B, and C, and I'll throw in D, all the above. Just for the ultra dumbed down audience members that may be here, but I don't think they are. But I just want to, they might go, where's the D option? I'll give them D, all the above, and they can make an A, absurd response answer. But I believe the answer is A. It's 0.01. Now, the reason is because nearly all of these subscribers subscribed and then went away, and they're not being notified of the new uploads. Otherwise, if more of them were, right, the views per video would look more like 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000. And the same goes for other channels. There would be more people actually being notified. You also have to click the red bell. So if you're not clicking the red bell next to subscribe, you may not be notified because they changed the YouTube algorithm. You may not know this. So a person that genuinely is awake, that knows that there's censorship, that knows that there are bots, that knows that these things are going on, they don't wait for an algorithm that they already know is controlled by them. They're actually going to go to that person's channel. They're going to go to that person's website. They're not going to wait for a machine to fry their burger for them and then give them the bill. But we are moving in this direction. We're moving in the direction where people are making love to robots. We're moving in the direction where robots are making our food. We're already at the level in which robots are replacing the human DJ. We now live in a world where we have robot mystics, like the Higher Self YouTube channel, which I talked about yesterday, where people are actually preferring to be given new age fake channeled information from a robot now that many of the humans are not convincing enough. They got to get their spiritual fix from a robot. Now, would it not require some sort of a android consciousness, right, to be enlightened by the sound of a robot? You know, it's kind of like wanting to hear from a fellow tribal member. Is someone going to associate more with a robot or a human being? When you have, right, people connecting more with AI and robots and disinformation that might as well be created by AI. You're not dealing with a woke society that's avoided the dumbing down of society. We don't have conferences anymore. Where I mean, you can have an occasional Alex Jones led or a Project Camelot led or a Conscious Life Expo led event. Those are events that are organized by people with money, where they charge a great deal of money. They make money. They record a few videos, maybe make a few DVDs, and everybody goes home. And there's even less of those. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a conference. I'm talking about camping trips. I'm talking about a festival. You know, there's something called a bluegrass festival that occurs in various places. There's probably hundreds of thousands of folk or bluegrass festivals within the United States. You also have like the rainbow thing. And I'm not a fan of any of these, but these are examples of festivals. These are examples of gatherings. And there are some people, right, that enjoy the rainbow thing because it doesn't revolve around money. There may be some corruption involved in elements of rainbow and unconsciousness, heavy drug use, but the emphasis on going beyond money is something worth repeating. And it's like for those people that call themselves woke, for those people that call themselves aware of the one world government, the dumbing down of our society can be most clearly defined in our lack of any get-togethers whatsoever, and our micro, tiny, we're woke, the rest of the world is asleep, little cubicle realities where they're little laptops with everybody sitting there on face crack, sharing disinformation for the most part. Using Facebook as a way to reach out to other alleged awakened people. In some cases, people not even realizing that they have been rendered invisible. And I've been rendered invisible for a few months, so I've essentially nearly stopped Facebook. And Facebook has really played a role in the dumbing down of America, with people thinking that it's playing a role in our revolution, or people waking up or coming together or overthrowing something, and it's actually going in the opposite directions. Facebook ultimately is where real friendships go to die, or where for potential friendships in the future are prevented from going any further once people entangle themselves on a Facebook level. Some people prefer that to the real thing, right? Think about it, somebody that may prefer pornography to like real actual sex if given the chance. In some cases, that may be safer. And in some cases, it may be safer to only know someone on Facebook than to know them in real life. And I know what that's like. It is safer to keep it on a digital level with some people that are unhinged. And there's more unhinged people on the internet than I've ever come across before. And it has to do, I think, with the changing times in our society. So I'm going to come back and talk more about the avoiding of the dumbing down of society. But it really comes down to maintaining a connection with nature, maintaining a connection with your higher self, taking time to meditate, taking time to change things up, taking time to journal, taking time to exercise, taking time to not stay in some limited type of a mold or a structure, to continue to grow and evolve to ultimately prevent the ultimate bad habit of humanity from occurring to you, which is ending up on autopilot. So prevent autopilot and think for yourself.